Guns. Lots of guns.
Keanu Reeves didn't conquer Hollywood by being the loudest man in the room. He did it by staying still when everyone else reached for volume. Wrong era, wrong type on paper, soft-spoken, thoughtful, almost shy. But on screen, that quiet became a kind of gravity. Directors leaned on it, crews trusted it, audiences felt it. In a business that worships noise, certain energies were always going to clash with his. This video isn't a secret list of personal enemies. It's a look at 5 very public Hollywood forces: Alec Baldwin, Shia LaBeouf, Jared Leto, Val Kilmer, and Sean Young, whose reputations sit on the far side of Keanu's code. When you line them up against the way he works, you can see exactly why a man built on respect and control would never want to follow their path.
Staff Sergeant Dignam is our liaison to the undercover section. His undercover work is extensive.
Unfortunately, this shithole has more f***ing leaks than the Iraqi Navy.
Yourself.
I'm tired from f***ing your wife.
How's your mother?
Good, she's tired from f***ing my father.
One Alec Baldwin is a reminder that talent and temperament don't always point in the same direction. At his best, he's razor sharp, quick, funny, commandingly present. But for years, the stories that stuck weren't about the craft. They were about the temper, arguments caught on tape, confrontations on sidewalks, on-set blow-ups, and eventually the Rust tragedy, where process and safety broke down in the worst possible way.
Good God, lemon your breath. When did you find time to eat a diaper that you found on the beach?
On screen, that volatility reads as electricity. Off screen, it reads as risk. A film set is already a pressure cooker. Tight schedules, moving machinery, real weapons, long days. Add a lead whose first tool in a crisis is an explosion of anger, and everyone around them has to tense up. The work becomes secondary to survival. Keanu's Alec couldn't be more different. He builds performances on control, precise stunt work, careful preparation, a reputation for treating crew with the same respect as co-stars. When he talks about action scenes, he talks about safety. When colleagues describe him, you hear the same words over and over: calm, generous, professional. For him, the job is hard enough without creating extra danger to prove how serious you are. My read is simple. If Baldwin embodies the old Hollywood myth that rage is part of the package, Keanu stands for the opposite, that you can be intense on camera without turning life on set into collateral damage. One approach might make headlines, the other keeps people coming back to work with you. So if Baldwin represents anger turned outward, the next name on this list shows you a different kind of chaos. The performer whose whole career started to look like one long, unending crisis.
Watch out!
Shia LaBeouf arrived in Hollywood with the kind of raw energy executives love. Young, fearless, willing to throw himself into anything. The early films sold that chaos as charm. The stammering kid in Transformers, the live wire in prestige projects, the actor who seemed ready to burn himself up for a good take. For a while, people called that edge. Then the headlines started to stack. Arrests, fights, lawsuits, ugly allegations, public apologies, rehab, more apologies.
I'm looking for one of those 9s, please.
No candy.
Bullshit.
Gin.
Bullshit. No, you did.
Gin.
On screen, you can see the power. He's capable of real vulnerability, real danger. But the question for everyone around him is cruelly practical. What does it cost to get there? When the off-screen behavior keeps pulling focus, the set stops being a workplace and turns into an intervention with cameras. That's not depth, it's instability. Keanu's method looks almost boring next to that. And that's exactly the point. He trains, listens, hits his marks, and goes home. No drunken rants on stage, no performance art that spills into traffic, no crews wondering what will explode today. In a business addicted to stories about tortured geniuses, his contribution is the radical idea that you can do great work without treating everyone around you as collateral to your self-destruction. When I put these two side by side, it doesn't feel like a rivalry. It feels like a fork in the road. One path says you have to burn your life down to make interesting art. The other says you can protect your life and other people's and still show up honestly in front of the lens. Keanu has spent decades proving which one he believes. If LaBeouf is the symbol of life becoming constant crisis, the next name is something else again. The actor who turns his process into a kind of weapon and expects everyone on set to live inside it.
There it is, Jim.
Jared Leto is the contemporary face of a certain style of method acting, the kind that rarely stays on the page. You've heard the stories, staying in character between takes, pushing scenes past what anyone agreed to, sending disturbing gifts to colleagues, bragging about how far he's willing to go. Supporters call it commitment, critics call it a cult of self. Either way, the message is clear. My praises comes first, your comfort comes second.
The fire in my loins, the itch in my crotch, the infamous Harley.
The irony is that the camera doesn't care how much suffering went into a shot. It only sees what's in front of it. For the crew though, that behavior changes everything. You're no longer just lighting a scene or holding a focus mark. You're bracing for whatever stunt the lid feels justified in pulling today. Fear becomes part of the workflow. That's not art, that's a workplace hazard dressed up as authenticity. Keanu's approach to intensity is quieter and frankly kinder. He does the brutal work early, months of training, countless stunt reps, so that when he walks on set, he doesn't have to terrorize anyone to get into character. He can be fully present in the scene and still drop it the moment someone yells cut. The pain stays in the choreography, not in the crew's stories years later. What strikes me is the moral difference. Leto's legend is built on how much he's willing to put everyone through in the name of art. Keanu's legend is built on how much he refuses to. One performance might be louder, stranger, more talked about. The other lets everyone go home with their dignity intact. To me, that counts as part of the performance, whether it's on screen or not. So, if Leto is the extreme of process over people, the next story is about something older and more familiar. A brilliant actor whose ego became its own character, one that everyone else had to play around.
You are still dangerous.
For Val Kilmer is the most bittersweet name here because his best work is genuinely thrilling. Top Gun, Heat, The Doors, he doesn't just appear in those films, he slices right through them. But the stories that followed him around sets were less flattering. Battles over creative control, tense relationships with directors, crews bracing for difficult days. Whether every anecdote is fair or not, a pattern settled in all. This is a man that the production has to orbit. That focus can be gold on camera. Off camera, it turns into something else when it shades into entitlement. If you expect the whole set to adjust to your moods, your needs, your idea of how the scene should go, you're asking dozens of people to shrink so you can feel larger. It's not evil, it's just corrosive over time. Respect becomes a one-way street. Keanu's authority looks different. He's a star, he has power, but the way he uses it is mostly by not pulling rank. You don't hear stories about him screaming for different lighting or threatening to walk if his character doesn't get the final word. You hear that he took a pay cut so other actors could be hired, or that he spent 8 hours signing autographs politely because people had waited. That's not saint behavior, it's basic decency. But in Hollywood, basic decency starts to look radical. When I look at Kilmer and Keanu side by side, I see two versions of what screen charisma can do to a person. One turns it into a shrine that everyone else has to worship at. The other treats it like a loan from the audience that has to be earned again, film by film, day by day. If Kilmer represents the danger of believing your own legend a little too hard, the final name on this list is about something even more draining. The colleague you avoid not out of anger, but because the drama just never stops.
Also, I'd report the person who gave it to me to the police. I'd take him to the doctor.
Sean Young is a tragic figure in a lot of ways. In Blade Runner, she's unforgettable, strange, poised, fragile, and sharp at the same time. But over the years, the coverage around her shifted from performances to behavior, public confrontations, lawsuits, talk show confrontations, stories of turning up where she wasn't wanted and leaving a trail of conflict behind. The narrative hardened into one word: difficult.
I didn't know if I could play. remember and listens. I don't know if it's me.
The human side of that is complicated. Hollywood chews people up. Women in particular often get labeled crazy for pushing back at things men are praised for. But whatever mix of injustice and self-sabotage is in that story, the result for the crews is the same. Every project becomes a question mark. Will today be about making the movie or managing another eruption? For someone like Keanu, who sees the set as a place of work and mutual respect, that kind of unpredictability is a quiet red flag. To me, Young stands for the saddest version of the pattern we've been talking about, when the off-screen storm eats the work completely. You're left with a handful of great roles and a lot of people who flinch when your name comes up, not because of the acting, but because of everything around it. And that brings us back to Keanu Reeves himself, a man who seems to have spent his entire career trying very deliberately not to become another one of those stories. Line these 5 up and a pattern snaps into focus. Baldwin's eruptions, LaBeouf's endless crises, Leto's weaponized method, Kilmer's all-or-nothing ego, Young's exhausting drama, they all belong to an old Hollywood religion that confuses turmoil with depth. Keanu, for all his flaws and tragedies, has chosen another faith. Show up, do the work, protect the people around you, let the performance speak instead of the headlines. We don't know who he privately forgives or resents, and that's the point. His real statement is the kind of behavior he refuses to copy. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more Studio Craft deep dives. We'll see you in the next one.